From the News Channel 5 network, this is the plus side of Nashville.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm Tuwanda Coleman. But we're starting things off today talking about a societal problem that could be affecting your children. So how much time does your child spend playing video games or on the computer? How about their phone? Well, there's research that shows that extended periods of time in front of an electronic screen could be doing more harm than good on our children. And here to talk more about that is Stacy Jagger, who's a licensed therapist and who sees the results of some of these electronic communications in her practice. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's so interesting what you've been researching and what your work has been showing you. Talk a little bit, Stacy, about the research and the statistics that's the number of hours that our children spend in front of some sort of electronic media.
Yeah, so research shows that children are on iPad, iPhone, computer, TV, Wii, video games about 7 hours a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it also shows that a lot of times that our children are feeling less connected than ever, even though they're constantly on their phones or on their computers talking back on social media to their friends. So how is that possible that they're not feeling this connection?
Well, there's reality and then there's virtual reality. So reality, we're using our 5 senses. So I don't know about you, but my favorite memory as a child was being in my grandmother's kitchen. So what could I hear? I could hear her singing. I could smell her apple pie. I could feel her love, and I was using my 5 senses, right? So virtual reality really means almost real. And we're not using our 5 senses when we're using virtual reality. So a child is not going to remember their best day of television.
That's so true.
Yeah.
A lot of times we'll see or we'll hear about how often the kids are, we set them down in front of a TV to sort of entertain them, even when they're just like a toddler. So you can get a little work done around the house and the kids are sitting there watching their little movies or what have you. Is it too early? When is it too early to start our kids in front of a TV? Well,
most pediatricians encourage you to wait till they're at least 2 years old. That's not possible for lots of families. And, screens are not the bad guy. It's the amount of screen time that is the bad guy. That creates a situation where over time the child ends up feeling very isolated because they're not getting enough eye-to-eye contact. They're not getting enough reciprocal play and enough interaction with people. They're looking at screens.
And they're not going outside to play.
Right.
Like you said, when I was growing up, hanging around with my grandma and watching her cook, and, we weren't constantly having that media in front of us. There are some physical and actual sort of mental types of things that transpire when there is that overstimulation from electronic media, and I think you're seeing this in your practice.
Well, what I'm seeing is the frames per second that young children are watching. It's not necessarily the content, it's the frames per second that are so quick that the child's brain will hyper-focus on the frames per second, so that when you take the media away, their brains are actually still looking for that stimulation. So they want to be plugged back in.
Wow.
They're begging to be plugged back in because their brains are looking for, how can I be stimulated?
Does that affect the way they interact with their parents or friends?
Well, you tell me.
Yeah.
What are you saying?
I'm just saying that there's not any interaction because they're sitting next to each other.
Right.
Both of them right next to each other, texting each other.
Right. It's really a huge cultural problem right now that kind of needs to be put into a better perspective.
It really does.
Yeah.
And I know you're working to try to help make that happen. And you're right now, you've got what you call the 30-day blackout that you're wanting to encourage families to try. Tell me a little bit about that.
So about 5 years ago, I just had a crazy idea that I call the 30-day blackout. And what I tell the parents is what we're going to do. In order to get your child back, we're going to turn everything off for 30 days. So every iPad, iPhone, computer, TV, video games, we're going to turn it all off. And that is the point that parents look at me like I have about 7 heads.
Because they know the kids are going to just have a heart attack.
Right. And so what I encourage is to blame the whole thing on me.
Okay.
So I'm the scapegoat. And the parents will go home and just say, you know what, guys, we're not connecting the way that we really want to. And for that reason, we're going to turn everything off. I've had children melt down in my office and have to be scooped up and carried away.
I can believe
when
that.
they find out they're about to lose their screens. But the way that it works is the first 5 days are extremely hard.
Yes.
So I prepare the family for that. And then the children walk through what I call the door of boredom. And when they walk through that door, they truly believe that boredom is going to kill them. But it's never happened.
No, it hasn't. I don't think anybody's ever died from boredom.
No. And then the next 3 weeks after that, I simply encourage and coach the parents to replace connection activities for what used to be entertainment.
Wow.
And through that process, from day 1 to day 31, I wish that you could see what I see, because in the beginning, I can see a young child that can't even maintain eye contact for more than about 30 seconds. And at day 30, 31, they have a whole different experience of connection. And when they're mad at me in the beginning, they're very grateful and writing me testimonials at the end.
Well,
so it's very, very worth it. It's worth it.
It sounds so worth it. And we've got some talking points that when we come back of what you're asking parents and children to do. And you will definitely want to get a pen and paper, write these down, and we'll talk more about that when we come back. So stay with us.
Okay.
I want us to go. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, my guest is licensed therapist Stacy Jagger. We've been talking about the effects of extended amounts of electronic stimulation on our children. And before we went to the break, we were talking about your 30-day blackout and how you work with parents and families on this. And I want to kind of go through the checklist, because these are things that during this time period of 30 days that you recommend and ask the parents and the children to do. And the first thing is to create a one-page document.
Stating that all electronics will be turned off for 30 days.
Wow. And then do they have to sign that?
Yeah.
So you're asking the parents and the child to sign.
So I have found that unless the whole family does it together, it doesn't work.
Okay.
It simply will create a resentment in the children if the parents get to have screens and they don't. So I recommend either do it together as a family or don't do it at all.
I think that's a great idea. You have to establish when and this is going to begin and end, right? So you would say...
You just say, we're April 1st.
And then we'll go for 30 days.
That's right.
And then at the end of the 30 days...
So at the end of the 30 days, what I encourage is that screen time is now the dessert of your life rather than the main course. And for young children, I recommend screen time marbles. So you just get a little jar and put 7 marbles in the jar. And each marble equals 30 minutes to an hour of screen time. And they can spend their screen time as they want to throughout the week. If they have great behavior, you might want to add a marble to their jar, or if not, if they're being disobedient, you have the option of taking a marble out.
So you can't go back to the way things were before those 30 days and just think that everything is going to be fine.
If you go back to what you've always done, you'll get what you've always gotten.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you recommend at least 5 minutes of special play time to take place daily between the parents and each child. And this is each child? If
That's right. That's what I recommend. 5 minutes per child of special play time, where you simply don't ask any questions or give any critiques or commands, but you just reflect and imitate their play for 5 minutes.
Okay, I like that.
Yep.
And as you said before, it's a whole family thing. And you say parents should reaffirm their commitment to only working during normal business hours. So they kind of really need to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of parents will simply just decide from 6:30 at night till 6:30 in the morning is their special time to be present with their children. And they will let their clients know that they're not available for those 12 hours.
That's great.
Yeah.
And then you also recommend nightly check-ins.
Yeah. And lots of unstructured nature-based play is very helpful for families. So just going out for hikes and walks, and many times after the door of boredom, and as we're replacing connection for what used to be entertainment, many children are willing to do things they were not willing to do before, like chop vegetables with mom in the kitchen and play simple board games and go for family walks. And it becomes, you know, just a reconnecting time where you're unplugging from media and plugging in to each other.
What has been the typical response from your families and your clients after they have tried this 30-day? I know the kids think they're going to die, but they usually survive.
Most of the families that I work with are very grateful, and many of them will do it twice.
Wow, because sometimes I guess it just takes
a little longer sometimes to get, you know, what you want, if you really want what you want, which is to get your child back.
If we don't get this sort of issue under control, it's scary to kind of think about what our future of what our kids are going to, what their lives are going to be like in the future, where you can't talk to anybody because you have to text them when they're sitting right next to you.
It's really feeding into anxiety and depression and isolation, and the children that I see that are hurting, the blackout is about half the problem. It solves about half the problem, usually, when I'm working with them.
If people wanted to get in touch with you, Stacy, to find out more about the blackout, or maybe try to get with you for some therapy for their family, what should they do?
They just go to stacyjagger.com.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So nice to meet you.
Nice
All
to meet
very
you.
Interesting statistic and so much information. I'm sure most of us have been thinking.
Yeah.
Whether you have children or not, we were seeing this problem sort of it's just getting worse and worse. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Up next.